I've started a new channel called Lunila Tales. Please subscribe and watch my best stories there. Link is in the description. The first punch didn't land on a face. It landed on an ego. Vortal the Conqueror, champion of 17 star systems, laughed so hard he almost dropped his plasma blade. Across the arena, the human stood barefoot on metallic sand, wearing ripped jeans and a t-shirt that read, "Kiss the Cook." The crowd of billions erupted in laughter that rippled through the dome like thunder. A human, they said, a soft-skinned creature from a forgotten planet, was going to fight the most feared gladiator in the galaxy. It was supposed to be a warm-up show, a comedy act before real blood was spilled. What they didn't know was that the joke had already started telling itself. Jack Halson squinted under the glare of 3 suns and scratched his beard. The translator chip embedded behind his ear crackled as Vortal strutted closer, his body shimmering with bioluminescent armor. "You are the offering from Earth?" Vortal's voice boomed through the arena. "Your species breeds fighters from garbage pits?" Jack shrugged. "Nah, Walmart parking lots mostly." The crowd didn't understand the reference, but the tone made them howl louder. Vortal raised his sword, its edge rippling like molten glass. "Do you fear death, human?" Jack tilted his head. "Nah. But I fear bad jokes, and buddy, you're killing me." The laughter turned to roars as the announcer's voice echoed through the sky. Blood Nebula Arena presents Vortal the Conqueror vs. Jack the Berserker from Earth. The title Berserker wasn't official. Jack had given it to himself in a drunken haze the night before. Still, it had a nice ring to it. The air shimmered as anti-gravity fields activated, suspending dust and fragments midair. Jack cracked his knuckles. Somewhere deep inside, a part of him that once fought in underground MMA circuits in Detroit began to wake up. The same part that got him banned for biting an opponent mid-fight and laughing afterward. The gong exploded with a sound like a dying star. Vortal lunged, his plasma blade cutting a blue arc. Jack dodged, barely, his reflexes still human but guided by desperation. He threw a punch that hit nothing but air and momentum. Vortal countered with a backhand so powerful it sent Jack spinning across the arena. The crowd gasped, expecting bones to shatter, but Jack landed awkwardly and stood up, dazed but grinning. "That all you got, glow stick?" he said. The laughter that followed wasn't all mockery this time. A few aliens paused. No one had ever joked mid-fight with Vortal. Vortal snarled. His next strike came faster, too fast for any normal human to react. But Jack wasn't normal anymore. The translator chip had synced strangely with his nervous system since his abduction, amplifying his instincts. Time seemed to stretch. He ducked, grabbed a handful of arena dust, and flung it into Vortal's face. The alien roared in disbelief. No one in galactic history had ever resorted to throwing dirt. It was unsophisticated, primitive, disgraceful, and wildly effective. Jack followed it up with a headbutt so hard it cracked Vortal's helmet. The audience went silent for a full heartbeat before erupting into chaotic applause. Jack staggered back, panting, tasting copper in his mouth. He hadn't won yet, but he had done the unthinkable, made a god bleed. Vortal wiped green ichor from his lip and smiled, a terrifying crescent of teeth. "You amuse me, human. I will make your death slow so I may enjoy it." Jack grinned back, blood dripping from his nose. "You already enjoy it too much. Buy me dinner first." The crowd howled again. This time, the laughter wasn't cruel, it was confused. They didn't know whether to cheer or jeer. The arena's energy shimmered strangely, like it was listening. Above them, the great overseer of the Blood Nebula watched from a glass balcony, his insectoid face unreadable. Beside him, the AI-controlled commentator drones whispered calculations. They had analyzed millions of matches. No human reflexes should allow survival beyond 30 seconds against Vortal. Yet Jack was alive at minute 4, grinning like an idiot and improvising like chaos itself had taken human form. One drone hummed nervously. Pattern deviation detected. Emotional feedback from audience altering arena resonance. Jack lunged again, using an old boxing trick mixed with pure insanity. He feinted left, pretended to trip, then used the momentum to swing an elbow straight into Vortal's jaw. The alien stumbled. Jack followed up with a leg sweep, then an uppercut that made the crowd gasp. For a brief, electrifying moment, it looked like Vortal might fall. Then the alien roared, grabbing Jack by the throat and lifting him off the ground. "You fight like an animal," Vortal growled. Jack croaked, "That's racist." He twisted midair and drove both knees into Vortal's chest, breaking free as plasma arcs sliced through the air. Dust rose. The audience leaned in. Jack's chest burned. His heart pounded like a drumline gone mad. He felt something, some pulse, from the ground beneath him. A strange rhythm that matched his heartbeat. For a second the arena floor seemed alive, pulsing with energy. He blinked it away, focused on Vortal, and spat blood. "Round 2, he muttered. The crowd began chanting without knowing why. "Berserker! Berserker!" Even the announcer hesitated before joining in. The human had turned humiliation into spectacle. Vortal raised his sword, fury shaking his limbs. "No more games!" He charged, blade screaming through the air. Jack rolled, barely escaping death, and reached for the only weapon within arm's reach, a broken fragment of alien armor. He hurled it like a discus. It struck a control pillar at the edge of the arena, sending sparks into the air. The lights flickered. The ground rumbled. A sudden deep hum echoed through the dome, shaking the audience into silence. Something beneath the arena was stirring, ancient and mechanical. Jack stared around, confused. Vortal paused mid-strike. Even the overseer stood up. A voice, not one of the commentators, not even of the living, whispered through the stadium sound system. Emotional resonance threshold reached. Awakening sequence initiated. The crowd froze. Jack turned slowly toward the glowing cracks forming in the arena floor. Vortal lowered his weapon slightly. "What is this?" he demanded. Jack, half laughing, half terrified, whispered, "Guess we hit a nerve." The floor exploded in a blinding surge of light that swallowed them both. Billions of viewers gasped across the galaxies as the transmission cut to static. When the feed returned seconds later, only one figure stood in the dust. The arena had gone completely silent. Vortal's armor lay in ruins, smoking. Jack was breathing hard, his eyes wild, his shirt half-burned. He looked around at the silent, stunned audience and raised a trembling fist. "Earth sends its regards." The entire Blood Nebula, for the first time in history, fell utterly silent. Somewhere in the galaxy, a billion hearts skipped a beat, and something ancient inside the arena began to wake up. Jack woke up to the smell of burnt ozone and the taste of metal in his mouth. His head pounded like a nightclub bassline in an earthquake. The ceiling above him was made of transparent panels that showed the infinite stretch of the Blood Nebula outside, swirling red and gold like a divine bruise across space. His body ached in ways that didn't seem biologically possible. When he tried to sit up, a dozen tiny alien drones zipped around him, scanning every inch of his body with flickering blue beams. One of them beeped and projected a holographic display in an alien script that translated into something both horrifying and hilarious. Subject stable. Physiology borderline insane. Probability of survival by luck. 100%. A metallic voice echoed in the chamber. "You are difficult to classify, human." Jack groaned and looked around. The voice belonged to a tall alien with 4 arms, dressed in what looked like a lab coat made of liquid glass. "You are awake earlier than expected. Most species take days to recover from a Vortal strike." Jack rubbed his temples. "Guess I'm built different." The alien blinked, unamused. "You are built wrong." The memory of the fight flooded back, the roar of the crowd, the flash of light, Vortal's fall. Jack remembered the explosion and the eerie silence that followed. "Where's Glowstick?" he asked. The alien tilted its head. Vortal the Conqueror is alive. Angry. Humiliated. You have made history and several powerful enemies. Jack sat up fully, ignoring the protest of his ribs. The alien handed him a transparent tablet showing a replay of the fight from a dozen angles. Billions of viewers had watched it across the galaxy. The title read "The Human That Mocked the Champion." The comment feed was a mix of awe, confusion, and pure laughter. Some aliens thought the whole match was scripted. Others believed he was some kind of demon. Jack couldn't help but chuckle. They love me or hate me. Just like back home. The alien scientist tapped its chin. They do not understand you. That may be your greatest weapon. A few hours later, Jack was dragged back into the training hall, still half-dazed. The Blood Nebula Arena didn't allow downtime for recovery. Every fighter was expected to train or die trying. The hall was filled with monstrous beings from across the stars. Reptilian giants, tentacled warriors, metallic life forms that clanked with every step. Jack looked like a child lost in a zoo exhibit. The training supervisor, a gelatinous creature named Core, oozed over and handed Jack a weapon shaped like a staff with rotating ends. "You will train," Core gurgled. "Or you will perish next match." Jack twirled the staff once, accidentally hitting himself in the shin. "Got it. Immediate self-harm is part of the curriculum." Over the next few days, Jack learned quickly that alien combat training was nothing like the martial arts of Earth. Gravity fluctuated, weapons emitted sonic blasts instead of physical strikes, and the rules changed every session depending on the mood of the overseers. Yet somehow Jack adapted. His human instincts, honed by street fights, bar brawls, and desperate survival, gave him an advantage that no one expected. When a six-eyed lizard monster lunged, Jack feinted with a joke, making the creature hesitate just long enough to take a knee to the throat. When a telepath tried to read his mind, he started singing old country songs in his head until the psychic begged for mercy. His unpredictability became his deadliest weapon. Vortal watched from the balcony, his body wrapped in new armor, his pride barely holding together. Every time Jack landed a hit or made another alien stumble, Vortal's claws dug deeper into the railing. The laughter of the crowd echoed through the training complex, and each laugh was another blade twisting into the Conqueror's ego. One afternoon, when Jack knocked a 12-foot cyborg unconscious using nothing but a broken stool and an insult, Vortal finally snapped. He leapt from the balcony, landing with an impact that sent shockwaves through the hall. The entire room froze. Vortal stalked toward Jack, towering above him. "You mock the sacred art of combat," he growled. Jack wiped sweat from his brow. "Sacred? Looked more like synchronized murder practice to me." The crowd murmured. Vortal drew his blade, its glow reflecting in Jack's eyes. "You think you can humiliate me twice?" Jack sighed, dropping the stool. "No, I plan to make it 3 times. The room gasped. Core the gelatinous supervisor flapped its pseudopods nervously. Unauthorized combat is forbidden. But it was too late. Vortal charged, roaring like a storm. Jack didn't retreat. Instead, he sidestepped, using the alien's momentum against him. It was messy, improvised, human. He ducked, grabbed a piece of debris, and jammed it under Vortal's foot. The Conqueror tripped and crashed face-first into the metallic floor. The silence that followed was unbearable. Then, slowly, someone in the crowd started laughing. Another joined. Then another. Within seconds, the entire hall erupted in uncontrollable laughter. Vortal lay still, the humiliation burning deeper than any wound. Jack looked down at him and muttered, "You ever think maybe the galaxy's too serious for its own good?" Later that night, Jack sat alone in his holding cell, staring at the glowing ceiling. He wasn't sure if he'd just signed his death warrant or bought himself another day. The cell door slid open with a hiss, and the scientist from earlier entered, holding a small device. "We analyzed your neural pattern," it said. "There is interference." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Interference?" The alien nodded. Your brain waves disrupt the arena's control systems. You are not compatible with our technology. You confuse it. That is why your opponent's armor malfunctioned, and why the arena trembled. Jack frowned. So what, I'm a walking Wi-Fi jammer? The alien didn't laugh. Something about your biology resists control. It is rare. Dangerous. The overseer is concerned. He has ordered more tests. Jack leaned back against the wall. Tell him to send an appointment card. But even as he joked, his mind raced. The arena had reacted to him. The floor had pulsed with his heartbeat. The explosion, the light, the silence, all of it connected somehow. Maybe he wasn't just a lucky human after all. Maybe the arena itself was watching him. As the scientist left, Jack caught a glimpse of the arena through the observation window. Vortal was there, training furiously, his rage fueling every strike. The crowd still chanted Jack's name in distant corridors. Berserker, they called him now. A myth was forming out of chaos, one that Jack didn't fully understand. He lay back on the metal slab that passed for a bed and laughed quietly to himself. From a washed-up fighter who couldn't keep a job to a galactic menace who broke physics by accident, life sure knew how to keep things interesting. But deep beneath the laughter and bravado, something stirred. The same pulse he had felt in the arena thrummed faintly beneath the floor of his cell, sinking again with his heartbeat. He couldn't tell if it was real or just exhaustion messing with his head. He closed his eyes, feeling the vibration grow stronger, almost like the arena itself was breathing with him. Somewhere far above, the overseer watched the readings spike. The next morning began with alarms, blinding lights, and the smell of recycled air that always reminded Jack of old Jim Sock. He had been dreaming of a cheeseburger when the door to his cell slid open and two armored guards yanked him out. Their movements were mechanical, precise, and not entirely organic. One of them had wires running through its veins that pulsed in time with a faint hum coming from the corridor walls. Jack tried to crack a joke but was too tired to think of one, so he simply said, "Morning cardio already? You guys sure know how to treat your guests." They didn't reply. The corridor ahead glowed with shifting colors, like the inside of a lava lamp built by a sadistic engineer. At the end of it waited a tall figure wearing the official robes of the overseer's court. Jack was dragged into a massive hall filled with alien dignitaries of every shape imaginable. They sat in floating thrones arranged in concentric rings around a central platform, their eyes, if they had any, focused on him. At the center of the platform stood Vortal, restored to full health, his armor darker now and adorned with jagged spikes. His smirk was gone, what replaced it was pure venom. Jack was shoved forward until he stood beside him, blinking in confusion. "Welcome to the tribunal," the overseer's voice boomed from above. The insectoid ruler leaned forward, its glassy eyes refracting the light like diamonds. "You two will represent your species in the tournament of titans. Victory determines survival. Failure determines extinction." Jack froze. "Hold on," he said. "Extinction? Like total?" The overseer tilted his head slightly. "Your planet was selected for erasure cycles ago. But the arena's council has decided to give your species one chance to justify continued existence. You will fight for Earth. Vortal will fight for his kind. Only one civilization leaves this tournament intact." The crowd erupted in shrieks, clicks, and cheers. Jack looked around dazed. "No pressure then," he muttered. Vortal turned toward him, his voice a low growl. "I will enjoy turning your bones into ornaments." Jack forced a grin. "You'd need to win first, glow stick." The guards shoved him back before he could say more. Hours later, he found himself in the preparation wing, sitting on a bench made of smooth stone that pulsed faintly with energy. He rubbed his wrists, still sore from the restraints. Across the room, alien engineers tuned weapons that looked like something between torture devices and musical instruments. The scientist who had examined him before entered quietly, carrying a metallic briefcase. "You should not have agreed," it said. I didn't exactly get the chance to decline, Jack replied. The alien placed the briefcase on the bench and opened it, revealing an exosuit made of flexible plating. This will keep you alive longer, it said. Jack poked it with a finger. Define longer. The alien's expression didn't change. Minutes, perhaps an hour. Your physiology disrupts the arena's systems. The overseer wishes to study that. As Jack slipped into the exosuit, the material adjusted to his body, humming softly. It felt oddly alive, as though it was breathing with him. The alien leaned closer and whispered, "The arena feeds on emotion. The laughter, the fear, the rage, all of it sustains the structure. Do not give it what it wants." Jack frowned. "What happens if I do?" The alien hesitated. "Then it grows stronger. And so does Vortal." Before Jack could reply, the door burst open, and Core the gelatinous supervisor oozed in, vibrating with excitement. "The opening ceremony begins. Try not to die immediately, human. We have bets running." Jack sighed. "Glad to know I'm good for morale." The arena had changed since the last fight. The ground shimmered like liquid mercury, constantly shifting. Thousands of spectators filled the stands, each species more bizarre than the last. Floating drones projected the faces of the contestants across the sky. When Jack's image appeared, the crowd booed, hissed, and threw things that defied physics. A few alien commentators mocked his species, Stone Age musculature, and primitive survival tactics. But among the jeers there were a few faint cheers, aliens who loved chaos more than order. Jack caught their energy and grinned. "Let's make history again," he whispered under his breath. Vortal entered the arena from the opposite gate, his armor glowing crimson. The crowd erupted into chants of his name. He raised his sword high, basking in the adoration. Jack scratched his neck and shouted, Yeah, we get it, you're tall and shiny. Save some ego for the afterlife." The crowd booed louder, but a few laughed. The overseer's voice thundered again, announcing the rules. No external assistance, no teleportation, and no mercy. The signal flared, and the match began. Vortal charged like a meteor, his blade leaving trails of molten light. Jack dodged, barely avoiding decapitation. His reflexes, amplified by adrenaline and the strange neural feedback of the arena, kicked into overdrive. He rolled, grabbed a piece of debris from the shifting floor, and flung it at Vortal's leg. It exploded into sparks, stunning the alien briefly. Jack lunged forward, punching with every ounce of strength he had. His knuckles cracked against the armor, but he kept going, blow after blow, until Vortal backhanded him across the field. Jack hit the ground hard and felt his ribs scream. He spat blood, laughed weakly, and said, "You hit like my ex-wife." Vortal roared and slammed his blade into the ground, releasing a wave of energy that sent Jack flying again. As he tumbled through the air, his suit flickered and began to spark. He crashed against the barrier wall and his vision blurred. For a moment everything went quiet. Then, in the static of his earpiece, a voice whispered, "Can you hear me?" Jack froze. It wasn't his translator. The voice was calm, almost mechanical. "We are watching. You are not supposed to exist." Jack blinked. "Who the hell is this?" The voice replied, "Earth was erased from the galactic registry centuries ago. Yet here you are. The arena hid your planet to maintain balance. But something in you is breaking the pattern." Before Jack could respond, Vortal grabbed him by the neck and lifted him off the ground. "Speak, human," the alien snarled. Jack smirked even as his vision darkened. "Talking to my fan club. Don't be jealous." He twisted his body, kicking off Vortal's chest and landing hard on the shifting floor. The ground beneath them pulsed brighter with each strike, the entire arena humming with rising energy. The laughter, the anger, and the tension of billions of spectators fed into the structure. Jack realized what the scientist meant. The arena wasn't just a battleground. It was alive, feeding on their emotions like a parasite. Vortal raised his sword for the final blow, but Jack grabbed a fragment of his own exosuit and jammed it into the alien's armor. The feedback caused the suit to short-circuit, sending a surge of blue lightning through both of them. The explosion hurled them apart. The crowd screamed. When the smoke cleared, Jack was kneeling, barely conscious, his hand clutching the cracked ground. Vortal lay sprawled on the opposite side, his weapon melted into the floor. When Jack woke again, it was to darkness that moved. The walls pulsed faintly like veins beneath translucent skin, and the air buzzed with an energy that wasn't mechanical. He realized he wasn't in the infirmary this time, but somewhere deep beneath the arena. His body felt lighter, almost detached, and the floor beneath him breathed in slow waves. Every few seconds, a deep hum vibrated through the ground, syncing perfectly with his heartbeat. He sat up, wincing at the ache in his ribs, and muttered, "Either I'm inside a spaceship or the world's weirdest stomach." A flicker of light appeared in front of him, and the scientist from before materialized, projected by a hovering drone. Its expression was grim. "You were not supposed to be here," it said. Jack rubbed his eyes. "Story of my life." The drone adjusted its lens, scanning the organic walls. "This is the sublayer of the Blood Nebula Arena," it explained. "Few have seen it and lived. The arena is not just architecture, it is a living construct, an ancient organism bound to the Overseer's control." Jack frowned. "You mean this whole place is alive? Like, with organs and thoughts?" The scientist hesitated. "Not thoughts. Hunger." Jack stood slowly, his boots sinking slightly into the pliant surface. "That's comforting." The alien continued. "It feeds on conflict, on the emotional energy of combatants and spectators alike. The more violent the battle, the more it grows. Your presence is disrupting it. The human emotional spectrum is unpredictable. It does not know how to digest you." Jack blinked. "So I'm giving it emotional indigestion?" The scientist didn't answer, but the walls shuddered as if in agreement. A metallic groan echoed through the chamber, followed by a series of tremors. Jack staggered, grabbing onto the drone for balance. "What's happening?" The alien's voice crackled through the speaker. "Vortal is fighting again. The Overseer is trying to stabilize the arena's feeding cycle by amplifying his rage. But your connection to it is interfering." The hum in the floor deepened until it felt like the heartbeat of a sleeping beast. Jack's pulse quickened in response. "Can I disconnect or something?" "Pull the plug." The alien shook its head. "You cannot. The arena has already linked to you. The only option is to balance it, or destroy it." The tremors grew stronger. Through a translucent wall Jack saw flickering shadows, gladiators fighting above him, their silhouettes twisting with unnatural speed. The arena's skin absorbed their movements, glowing brighter with every scream, every cheer. It was feeding. Jack's stomach churned as realization hit him. The Overseer wasn't hosting tournaments for entertainment. He was farming emotions. Every victory, every death, every laugh fed this creature beneath the sand. And now, somehow, Jack was part of its nervous system. The drone flickered again. "You must leave before it consumes you completely." Jack exhaled and muttered, "You really need better motivational speeches." A door-like opening formed in the wall, rippling like water. Jack stepped through cautiously and emerged into a dim corridor lined with what looked like metallic root. He followed the pulsing lights deeper, his footsteps echoing softly. The air grew heavier, almost electric. He heard whispers, faint and layered, as if the arena itself were speaking in its sleep. At first they were gibberish, but then words began to form. "Berserker, anomaly, restore equilibrium." He froze, turning in circles. "You can talk now? Great. That's not creepy at all." The voice didn't respond directly, but continued murmuring in multiple tones at once. "Balance or break. Chaos or silence." He reached a chamber filled with glowing nodes connected by organic tendrils. In the center floated a crystalline sphere that pulsed with light, mirroring his heartbeat. As he approached, images flashed across its surface, Scenes of Earth, its blue oceans and green forests, followed by the faces of humans laughing, crying, fighting. Jack stared in disbelief. "That's my home." The scientist's voice returned through the drone. "These are the arena's archives. It has recorded every species it has ever consumed. Earth was hidden from the registry, preserved within its data to maintain cosmic balance." Jack clenched his fist. "Hidden? You mean humanity's still out there?" The alien paused. "Perhaps. The records suggest your world was quarantined. The Overseer erased it from galactic history, but the arena kept its memory alive." Jack reached out to touch the crystal, and the moment his fingers brushed it, the lights exploded outward. His mind filled with fragmented visions, crowds chanting his name, Vortal roaring, the Overseer watching with cold precision. Then, beneath it all, he felt something else, a presence ancient and vast, watching him from within the arena. It wasn't just feeding, it was aware. The voice spoke again, no longer whispering. "You are not like the others. You do not fight for survival. You fight for defiance. I cannot consume that." Jack staggered back, gasping for air. "Good," he panted. "Maybe I'll give you a stomachache." The ground beneath him trembled violently, sending cracks through the chamber. The crystal dimmed, and the drone's image flickered. "You must leave now," the alien shouted. "Vortal's energy surge is overloading the system." Jack sprinted through the collapsing corridor as chunks of the living wall fell around him. He burst through a hatch and found himself beneath the main arena. He could see the battlefield through a transparent floor above. Vortal was fighting a massive insectoid gladiator, their weapons colliding with enough force to send waves of energy rippling through the structure. Each clash made the arena pulse like a living heart. The crowd screamed, the energy feeding the organism faster and faster. The Overseer stood in his balcony, raising his arms to amplify the chaos. Jack looked up at him and shouted, though no one could hear, "You're feeding a monster you can't control." Suddenly, Vortal's blade struck the insectoid through the chest, and the entire arena flared with light. Jack felt the surge hit him like a tidal wave. His vision blurred, and for an instant he was connected to everything: the crowd's euphoria, the gladiator's death scream, the Overseer's satisfaction, the arena's hunger. Then came silence. When he opened his eyes, the entire arena had frozen. The spectators, the fighters, even the drones, all motionless. Only Jack moved. The floor beneath him rippled again, and a voice rose from the depths. Mockery, laughter, chaos. He felt the ground pulling him down, tendrils wrapping around his ankles. He struggled, shouting, "Let go of me!" The tendrils paused, then slowly receded. The voice softened. "You confuse me, human. You are not prey. You are catalyst." When the world resumed, Jack was standing alone on the arena floor. The fight had ended, Vortal was gone, and the Overseer stared down in visible shock. The audience murmured, unsure what had happened. The drones flickered as if struggling to process the data. Jack wiped sweat from his brow, his heart still hammering. The scientist's voice came faintly through his earpiece. "Do you understand now? The arena's power depends on emotional predictability. You broke its system. It cannot process your chaos." Jack looked up at the vast, trembling structure above him. "Good," he whispered. "Let's keep it confused." The arena was no longer just a battleground. It had become a storm. Every wall, every glowing panel, and every trembling inch of ground pulsed like the heartbeat of a dying god. The air shimmered with energy so thick that it made breathing feel like inhaling lightning. Jack stood at the center of it, drenched in sweat and half mad from exhaustion. Around him, the crowd screamed, not in joy this time, but in panic. The great stadium of the Blood Nebula was falling apart. Pieces of the sky dome cracked open, revealing the blackness of space beyond. And in the chaos, Vortal returned. His armor, once gleaming crimson, now burned with raw light, as if molten hatred itself had been poured into metal. "You destroyed the audience's faith," Vortal shouted over the noise, voice distorted by the energy coursing through him. You broke the balance of glory. You infected the arena with your chaos. Jack spat blood and gave a crooked smile. I prefer the term freestyle. The overseer's voice echoed from above, louder than thunder. Stabilize the system. Terminate both of them if necessary. The overseer had lost his calm. The godlike composure was gone, replaced by something that sounded dangerously close to fear. Vortal leapt from the shattered balcony, landing with a shock wave that sent cracks spreading across the ground. Jack stumbled backward, raising his fists. You ever get tired of being dramatic? He said. Vortal's blade ignited, cutting through the air like a beam of sunlight warped by anger. This is no longer sport, human. This is retribution. Jack ducked under a swing that could have split a mountain and countered with a punch that connected solidly with Vortal's jaw. It barely made him flinch. The alien's counterattack sent Jack flying, tumbling through the air before crashing into a wall that pulsed as though alive. The wall absorbed the impact like flesh, rippling outward before throwing him back into the center of the arena. Jack groaned, rolling to his knees. The floor beneath him was changing, its smooth metal surface cracking to reveal an organic layer beneath, like exposed muscle. The arena was shedding its disguise. The scientist's words echoed in his mind. It feeds on conflict. It grows through emotion. Jack realized what was happening. The overseer had pushed it too far. The creature was awakening fully now, a living weapon that could consume worlds. You see it now, Vortal hissed. It demands balance. You will give it your life. Jack coughed and laughed weakly. Buddy, you first. The ground split open, releasing blinding tendrils of energy that lashed between them. Every strike from Vortal sent ripples through the arena's core. Each time Jack fought back, the tendrils pulsed brighter. The overseer screamed commands to the control drones, but the machines had stopped listening. The crowd's terror was feeding the system even faster, the laughter long gone. The arena had become a living storm of fear. Jack stumbled to one knee, breathing raggedly. His mind raced. The arena reacted to emotions, to intensity. If he could control that reaction, redirect it, he might survive. He thought back to his days as a fighter on Earth. The key wasn't rage or hate. It was focus. Fighting wasn't about killing your opponent, it was about outlasting them. He closed his eyes, forcing himself to breathe evenly despite the chaos around him. The ground beneath him pulsed slower. The tendrils hesitated, as if confused. Vortal lunged again, roaring. Jack sidestepped, grabbed the alien's arm, and used his own momentum to hurl him into a broken pillar. The crowd gasped. For a moment, the arena's rhythm faltered. But Vortal rose again, his body glowing brighter, his voice shaking with fury. You cannot win. The arena and I are one now. Jack shook his head. That's the problem. You're trying to control it. I'm just trying to survive it. He felt something deep inside his chest ignite, a wild, unstoppable surge of energy. The arena responded instantly, the lights flickering in sync with his pulse. His body ached, his veins burned, but his mind was clear. He could feel the link between himself and the living machine stretching across every inch of the battlefield. The scientist had called it interference. He called it instinct. Vortal charged again, and Jack met him head-on. Their collision created a shockwave that tore through the stands, sending debris flying into space. The overseer shouted something, but his voice was drowned by the arena's roar. Jack could feel Vortal's strength pressing down on him, the alien's rage feeding the creature beneath their feet. He laughed through the pain. Keep getting angry, big guy. You're just making me stronger. The alien's eyes widened as Jack's punches grew faster, harder, almost inhuman. Each strike sent flashes of light through the arena's structure, like neural signals firing through a brain. The floor began to melt beneath them, and Jack realized they were standing atop the arena's heart. The pulsing core glowed red and gold, its rhythm unstable. He had one chance. He grabbed Vortal by the collar of his armor, blood running down his arm. "You wanted balance," he said between ragged breaths. "Let's balance it." He threw Vortal into the glowing fissure just as the alien's sword pierced his shoulder. Both screamed, one from rage, the other from raw agony, as the energy surged upward, swallowing them both in light. When Jack's vision cleared, he was floating. There was no floor, no crowd, just a vast expanse of light and shadow. Vortal hung opposite him, suspended in midair. Between them pulsed the arena's core, now flickering erratically. The voice that had whispered to Jack before spoke again, but louder, deeper, resonating through his bones. Balance achieved through chaos. One must remain. Vortal snarled. "I am the chosen. I am order." The light around him intensified. Jack grinned weakly. "That's your problem. I'm not chosen. I'm just stubborn." He closed his eyes, letting the chaos flow through him. The laughter, the pain, the madness, it all became one endless rhythm. The arena convulsed. The light turned into a blinding storm, and Jack felt everything collapse into silence. When sound returned, he was lying on cracked ground, gasping for breath. Vortal was gone. Only his shattered armor remained, half fused into the floor. The overseer stood at the edge of the ruined platform, his once grand robes torn and his mechanical crown sparking. "What have you done, human?" he hissed. Jack pushed himself up, bloodied but smiling. "I stopped the game." The overseer's expression twisted into disbelief. Around them, the crowd sat in stunned silence. The arena's hum faded, replaced by a faint, rhythmic echo. It sounded almost like breathing. Jack glanced down and saw faint veins of light spreading outward from where he stood, connecting to every corner of the structure. The arena wasn't dead, it was changing. Its energy had stabilized, no longer feeding on fear or rage. Instead, it pulsed calmly, as if finally at peace. Jack whispered, "Guess even monsters can learn to chill." The overseer fell to his knees, staring at the transformed arena. "You've broken millennia of control." Jack gave a weak shrug. "You're welcome." Smoke curled into the shattered sky, twisting among fragments of glass and metal that drifted through the air like ash. The Blood Nebula Arena, once a monument to carnage and spectacle, lay silent for the first time in recorded history. Jack stood at its center, his body trembling with exhaustion, his face streaked with blood and dust. Around him, millions of alien spectators sat frozen in disbelief. The arena that had devoured empires now bowed to a single broken human. He could hear the faint hum beneath the silence, the heartbeat of the creature that had once fed on suffering. It wasn't angry anymore. It was calm, almost gentle, pulsing in rhythm with his own breath. Jack looked around at the ruins and muttered, "Guess that's one way to end a show." The overseer descended from his balcony, his once gleaming armor cracked and darkened. He walked slowly, the authority that had defined his every step now gone. "The arena is no longer bound," he said, his voice hollow. "You have severed its will from mine." Jack gave a crooked grin. "You're welcome, big guy. Consider it a late birthday gift." The overseer stared at him for a long moment. "You do not understand what you have done. The arena's power maintained order in this galaxy. Without it, chaos will spread." Jack shook his head. Order was just another name for control. Maybe it's time the galaxy learned to think for itself. The overseer's gaze dropped to the ground. "You speak like one who has never ruled." Jack smiled faintly. "And you sound like one who's forgotten what it means to live." The overseer turned away, his shoulders heavy, and vanished into the collapsing corridors. Jack exhaled, feeling the weight of what he had unleashed. He wasn't sure if he had saved anyone or doomed everyone, but for the first time since being dragged from Earth, he didn't care about winning. He only cared about breathing. He staggered toward the nearest exit, his legs barely holding up. The floor beneath him was warm now, almost comforting, as if the arena itself was guiding him. When he reached the outer gate, The massive structure split open like the petals of a metallic flower, revealing the void of space beyond. Ships hovered in the distance, their pilots hesitant, unsure whether to flee or bow. The galaxy's most feared battlefield had fallen, and its conqueror was a man from a planet no one believed still existed. A small transport craft descended, landing roughly on the cracked platform. The hatch opened, and the scientist who had once studied him emerged, its glassy eyes reflecting the ruins. "You survived," it said, voice shaking. Jack nodded. "More or less. You owe me a drink." The alien tilted its head. "I do not drink." Jack chuckled weakly. "Then you owe me too." The scientist extended a trembling hand. "The arena broadcasted your final battle across the entire network. Every world has seen it. They know the truth now, that the Overseer's balance was built on deception and pain. You have inspired rebellion." Jack leaned against the ship's hull, too tired to stand straight. "Inspire all you want. I'm retiring." The alien hesitated, then opened a small holoscreen showing messages from across the galaxy. Thousands of transmissions flooded in, some from species Jack had never seen, some from rebels who had lived in hiding. They all carried the same symbol now, a clenched human fist, glowing red and blue, surrounded by the words "Earth Lives." Jack stared at it, blinking slowly. "Earth Lives," he whispered. "So that's the headline, huh?" The alien nodded. "Your chaos gave them hope." Jack looked up at the glowing sky, the distant stars scattered like embers. "Hope's a dangerous thing," he murmured. "Let's see what they do with it." The scientist gestured toward the open hatch. "You should leave. The arena's energy field will collapse soon. We cannot predict what happens next." Jack looked back one last time at the colossal ruin, the remains of Vortal's armor still embedded in the floor. For a moment, he almost felt sorry for the alien. Vortal had lived by strength, by rules of dominance that no longer existed. Jack had broken those rules simply by refusing to play by them. "Rest easy, glow stick," he muttered softly. "You fought for pride. I fought because I didn't have a choice." Then he stepped into the ship. The craft lifted off, rising above the arena's ruins. From orbit, the Blood Nebula looked different now, its red hues dimming into shades of gold. The voice that had once echoed inside Jack's head spoke again, distant but clear. "Chaos is evolution's final weapon." Jack closed his eyes. "Guess that makes me a side effect." The scientist piloted the ship silently, glancing at him every few moments as though unsure whether to speak. Finally, it said, "Where will you go?" Jack looked out at the stars. "Home, if it still exists. And if it doesn't, I'll build a new one." The alien nodded slowly. "The galaxy will remember you as the Berserker. A symbol of defiance." Jack smiled faintly. "Symbols fade. People don't. Someone out there's already telling this story and making me sound 10 feet tall." Hours passed in quiet flight. Jack dozed in and out of consciousness, his dreams a blur of Earth's blue sky and the laughter of people he hadn't seen in years. When he finally opened his eyes, the ship had stopped moving. The alien turned from the console. "We are approaching the coordinates the arena kept hidden. There is energy emanating from below, a planet wrapped in cloaking fields." Jack's heart skipped. "Show me." The viewport flickered, and there it was. A small blue world, scarred but alive. Clouds drifted over continents that looked eerily familiar. "That's home," Jack whispered. The alien studied the readings. "Your planet was preserved by the arena's memory banks, sustained by the same energy it once used to feed on violence. You gave it back its life." Jack felt something tighten in his throat. "You mean it's real? Earth's still there?" The alien nodded. "For now." The ship descended through the atmosphere, flames licking the hull. The clouds parted to reveal a broken city beneath, its buildings crumbled, its streets overgrown. Jack's chest ached as the landing gear touched ground. He stepped outside, the air thin but breathable. The wind carried the scent of rain and rust. He walked through what was once a downtown street, past old billboards faded by time. One of them still stood upright, its surface scratched but legible. It showed an advertisement for a bar called the Orbit Lounge. Jack laughed softly. Home sweet dive. He pushed open the cracked door and stepped inside. The place was empty except for a few overturned stools and a dusty counter. He found a bottle half filled with something that smelled like whiskey and poured a shot. Sitting there, surrounded by silence, he could almost pretend none of it had happened. He raised the glass toward the empty room. "To the galaxy," he said. "May it never learn how to relax." He took the shot, grimaced, and laughed to himself. Then he noticed something.